Hello again. Welcome back to Cinema Analytics. Today we're going to look at 2018 box office and also studio revenue, studio profit, and the return on investment for movies in 2018. We're going to use a different visualization and database application, a different one from the previous visualizations and presentations. This report is being presented with Metabase, which is an open source database. So we'll start off here looking at the box office for all the different studios, and it's clear to see that Disney is leading the bunch with Universal and Warner Brothers, the three big studios, having the highest box office return so far. What I'm going to go ahead and do in here is just limit this so that we're looking at movies that opened, that have opened within the last, say before, and let's go back a month, and we'll say before 7/29. I can do that on all my tabs here. And that way that'll exclude any of the current films that are just a few weeks in release. And the same thing with profits. And my return on investment. And I have a field for raw data. I'll go ahead and do that. Set the filter. Okay, now we're all set. Now we're going to start off looking at the big studios, the main studios. So we're going to select BV, which is Univista, which is of course Disney. And we're going to choose Fox, Paramount, Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers. This is Warner Brothers' new line. We won't choose that as one of the major studios. So we're going to have 6 studios selected, and again, the major ones. I'm going to go ahead and do that for my other tabs also. So my tab for revenue, profits, ROI. All right, and we're all set. So now looking at the box office, we have the domestic gross, and the green is the foreign gross. And you can see the totals here is about 5.5 billion for Disney. Followed by Universal with about a little over 3 billion. Warner Brothers is third with about 1.5 billion. And here, these are all the films of the major studios so far. Again, we are filtering out any movies, any 2018 movies that have opened up in the last 30 days. So all the box office data here is for movies that have been out for at least 30 days. And of course, Infinity War is the leader here. Black Panther is second. Of course, it has a slightly higher domestic tally than Infinity War, but Infinity War, with this I think it was what it's 2.1 billion total gross, domestic and foreign. Okay, so now let's look at revenue. Now that we know what the box office picture looks like. And not surprisingly, Disney again, that's BV, Buena Vista Distribution, has the highest revenue with about 5 billion. Universal is following that with about 2.5 billion. Now let's look at profits. Now it gets a little bit interesting. This chart is showing the profits for 2018 movies, and these are for 2018 movies from the major studios, Disney, Fox, Paramount, Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers. And the blue shaded area right here and the data point underneath it is the profits for the theatrical release. So for instance, we can see that for A Wrinkle in Time, there's actually a profit loss of about 156 million, and it has to try to make that up in the ancillary markets. That's streaming, TV, Blu-ray, but it's only estimated to earn about 38 million. So what we end up with is a total profit that's still a significant loss. It's about 118 million. Compare that, for instance, to this is Ocean's 8, and Ocean's 8 has a theatrical profit loss of about 30 million. However, it's estimated to earn about 83 million in ancillaries. So its total profit is 53 million. So although there is a loss, in other words, the movie did not make its money back during the theatrical release, once you add in the ancillaries, then it should come up as a total profit of about 53 million. You can see if we take a movie that had a profit during the theatrical release, and a good one here is Insidious: The Last Key. Excuse me. This is Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Sometimes these data points don't come up, but this is Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. And you add in the ancillaries, and these two are additive, right, because of the profit during the theatrical release. And so its total profit is estimated at about $500 million. That's quite good. There are other films on here, as you can see, that had profits during the theatrical run, whereas some of the others, Solo: A Star Wars Story is a significant one. About 400 million lost during the theatrical run. It's going to make its money back, some money back during with the ancillaries, but it's not going to be enough to offset the losses because the budget was high, and of course you have marketing to go along with it. So it looks like Disney's going to lose about 290, even out the ancillaries. It's not going to help it at all. At this point, I need to talk about how these estimates are derived. The estimates are derived by taking Doctor Strange as a model and computing. I had the option of using either Doctor Strange or Black Panther as a model, but I think Black Panther is just a little bit too exceptional of a movie to apply a model to. I did it on a previous video, but I think it's just a little bit too extreme to use as a model. Doctor Strange is a little bit in the middle between the big blockbusters like Jurassic Park and Infinity War and Black Panther, and the smaller film. Looking at the profits for the major studios, we can see that Disney is leading the band with about 1.2 billion in profit. Universal is following that with about 800 million in profit, and the other studios, of course, are below that. Now, I want to make a direct comparison between Disney and Universal. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect the other studios, and I'm going to do the same for revenue also, and might as well do it for box office as well. Okay, and as we established, Disney had about 5.5 billion so far in 2018 total box office gross, both domestic and foreign, and it's about twice that of Universal. Same thing when we look at revenue. Disney's revenue is about twice that of Universal's. But when we look at profits, Disney's profits are only about 33% more than Universal maybe just a little bit less than that. And so what this is saying is that Universal has a better return on their investment, which you can see in this chart, the ROI chart. Universal has about 2.08, about 2.1 return on investment for their movies, whereas Disney has 1.23. So you can kind of get into the question of which is better. Is it better to have this higher revenue but the lower profits, or should a big studio like Disney and Universal and the others, of course, should they? Is it preferable for them to have the higher ROI but smaller revenue? And that's a very complicated question to answer. In some cases, you may actually want to go for the higher revenue over the better profit margin. That involves a lot of where the business itself is going. What it can also mean is that you have a studio which has a smaller market share. In terms of movies, when looking at return on investment, Truth or Dare has the highest index here. Return on investment 4.31. Some other films with high ROI are Insidious, The Last Key, and A Quiet Place. Now let's take a look at the films from the smaller studios. Leading the pack is the film Rampage, and I believe that's from Warner Brothers New Line here. Remove that. We'll remove Warner Brothers New Line from our data set. Now with Warner Brothers New Line taken out of the data set, we don't have one studio or one movie that's skewing the data. And so for box office, the leading studio, LGF, the movie that's driving that high box office is The Commuter. As for revenue, we have a tie between LGF, Lionsgate, and STX. And the leading movie again for revenue, that's going to be The Commuter. And here are all the revenue streams, theatrical and ancillary, for the other movies that were released under these smallest studios and distributors. Go ahead and look at profits. And we see that for the movie Early Man, which I believe is LGF, that's this loss here. It correlates to Early Man, which had, after its theatrical run, a profit loss of 80 million. It will recoup some of that, of course, in ancillaries, but it's still going to end up with about an estimated $65 million loss. That's pretty big for a huge distributor. I mean, for a small distributor like LGF, Lionsgate. As for some of the successes, well, we can see here that Overboard had a very, very nice profit of about 37 million. It also did recoup. It was able to get a profit from the theatrical release of about 10 million, a little over 10 million. And return on investment, Studio BST. Sorry, I don't have the actual full name of these studios. And here are the movies that had the best return on investment. The leading movie is Tyler Perry's Acrimony. Also doing well is the movie Midnight Sun, and also Hereditary. Now, keep in mind that even though some of these movies have awesome return on investment, the actual profit amount is pretty small on some of these. So, for instance, Tyler Perry's Acrimony had that ROI of 3.0. Its actual profit is about 25 million. which is significant for a small film, but if you try to compare that to any of the larger films with smaller return on investment, it's really minuscule. So this is a very good return on investment and a nice profit of 25 million for a movie that I think the budget was something like 3 million. Other movies that were like that, I mentioned Overboard, and we have this one over here, which is Hereditary, which also had a very small budget and turned a profit during its theatrical release. All right, let's go ahead and look at some more recent films. So I'll just change this so that instead of before, we're looking after July 27th. And let's go ahead and add New Line back in here. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to really skew the data. So, all right. So these are all the movies released after July 29th. We have Alpha, Black Klansman, Mile 22, Slender Man, and The Spy Who Dumped Me. And again, this is the minor studios, so it's not the major studios. That's why some titles are not on here, like Crazy Rich Asians, which is doing very well right now. But we're just looking at films from the minor studios. Focus, LGF, Screen Gems, Studio 8, and STX. The revenue for these studios, 40 million so far for Lionsgate. And again, this is for movies that have been released within about the last 30 days. And The Spy Who Dumped Me has the highest revenue. Profits, there's only one movie, it looks like one movie studio that's running a profit so far. Keep in mind that these movies have only been in theaters for about a month. And the only film that, it looks like the only movie that's actually has broken even at this point that's been released within the last 30 days is Slender Man. And this is about 2.2 million. ROI, once again, only Screen Gems, and that's courtesy of Slender Man. All right, let's go ahead and look at the major studios again. And again, this is going to be for films that were released after July 29th. Okay, so now looking at the major studios and for movies that were released after July 29th. And Warner Brother takes the lead here with the box office with 450 million, over 450 million so far from Warner Brothers. And we have The Meg, which is a Warner Brothers movie, and the other one is Crazy Rich Asians. Okay. Just take another look at that. Filtering on Warner Brothers, Crazy Rich Asians, and The Meg. Go ahead and get my other studios. As far as revenue goes, yes, not surprisingly, Warner Brothers again. This time with about 380 million in total revenue. For the individual films, again for revenue, The Meg, which has about 320 million in revenue, and Crazy Rich Asians so far, and I believe this is only the second weekend, and it's pulling in about 60 million in revenue. And again, this is revenue and not profit, and we're going to look at profit right now. And the only movie studio in this visualization that has broke even on their recent movies is Warner Brothers, which again has both The Meg and Crazy Rich Asians out right now. And as far as the individual films themselves, The Meg, you can see, is at about 12.5 million profit. Again, this is going to be after you include the estimated ancillaries. Same goes for Crazy Rich Asians, which is almost at the break-even point. It probably just needs another, I would guess, about another 20 million or so in box office receipts in order to break even. We can see that there are also some losses. Here's another loss for Disney for Christopher Robin movie. Even with the ancillaries, it looks like it's going to be a pretty significant loss. Of course, the movie is still in theaters right now, but at the moment, even if you include the expected ancillary revenue, it's going to come in at probably around $70 million loss. Right? And The Darkest Mind, I believe that's a Fox film. It looks like that's going to be a loss also. Still in theaters, but not pulling in much of a box office, and therefore not much of a revenue for The Darkest Mind. Return on investment, well, the Meg is almost at the break-even point for return on investment. All right, and for return on investment, it looks like Warner Brothers is almost there for its currently released movies. It just needs a few more days for Crazy Rich Asians to make about another 20 million or so in the box office, and then Warner Brothers should be at the break-even point for its currently released movies, or at least movies that were released in the last 30 days. And that would be The Meg and Crazy Rich Asians. So Warner Brothers is starting off, at least starting off August pretty good. So that's pretty much it. If you want to take a look at this visualization and do a little analyzing on your own, I will make this available. Just check the link down below, and I should have it posted. If you wanted to check, for instance, movies before a particular time frame, you can do that. So let's say we want to look at everything before, it's only 2018, but let's say we want to look at everything before May 1st. That didn't include Infinity War, Black Panther, any of those movies that came out during that time frame. And you can see the list of it, of those movies down here. This is for the major studios, as we have filtered up here. If you want to add any or take any out, you can. And once you do it from for one of the tabs here, it's up to you if you want to set them the same as you go back and forth, or they could be completely different. It's all up to you. So that's it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And as always, please like and subscribe.